Hello. Good afternoon. Wow, I actually had a handful of people show up. I've not done this before. It took me a couple minutes to figure out how to do it. I see Phil Merrow. I appreciate you leaving that note. Um, um, yeah, I'm grateful that those of you who are here. Feel free to leave any comments or questions in the I guess the right hand side here of the screen for like the chat feature. And to the extent that I'm able to, I will gladly answer your questions. Um, Before I dive all the way in, I guess I kind of want to just go backwards a little bit and just kind of restate how we got here. And for those of you who are still playing, like a little bit of catch up on the blogs, I was able to talk to one of the doctor's known daughters, and she and I got together virtually and decided that we were going to take our DNA tests to confirm, one way or another, if we were related, if I wasn't totally crazy, and we got the results on Tuesday of this past week. So I guess, yeah, just a few days ago now, maybe a week now. Paula, I know I'm sort of stammering through this. I got an email from the DNA site, and I forget the name of the organization. It wasn't ancestry.com, although I have gotten those results since. But this other test site notified me that my results were in, and Anna and I had spoken prior, and I had said, once I received the results, that I was going to reach out to her directly, and I would share my screen kind of in a similar format to how I'm sharing my screen now with each of you, and that we would open the results together. So we would find out at the exact same time, what the results were. And Sherbert Junction, I'm here following as a friend of the doctor's known daughter, sending love. Thank you on behalf of Anna, which is the name that we're giving her here in these spaces. So the your stomach kind of falls when you get an email like this with the type of information that you're expecting to see. And hi, Ramona, as well. And I can't really frame that for you guys. I'm going to do my best, but to say that I took my first DNA test 50 months ago, which is a long time. A lot can happen in 50 months. And those results came into me. Well, I took the test in January of 2017. The results came in March, and I didn't learn that I was donor conceived until September, so 6 months later. But that whole process has been 50 months. So anyways, I'll get to the point. The email shows up in my inbox. I get Anna on the video screen. We scroll down and I click on the attachment. Now, if you've ever taken any kind of a DNA test, it can be confusing, especially if it's not from Ancestry, where it tries to spell things out pretty plainly. Some of the more professional grade, tests give you a lot of information on centimorgans and shared strands of matching your 23 helixes with somebody else. But we looked at that information and scrolled down to the bottom for a written portion. And it said with 99.99% certainty that Anna was my half sister, which, if you guys have been following this and you understand the implications of it, would mean that I am not crazy, that my biological father was my mother's fertility doctor. And you guys might be sitting here watching this and not being surprised. And frankly, I shouldn't have been surprised either. This is a working theory that I put a lot of time and energy into, not just with myself, but others as well. To see 99.99% certainty on a piece of paper was still really disorienting. You prepare yourself for information like that. You tell your friends and your family, and each of you guys here, and Ramona, I know you and I feel like we've interacted on a lot of messages. You prepare yourself for it, and then you find out and you're still shocked. I'll be very honest, that first night I felt like I was swimming against the stream. It was just like everything was in my face all at once. I have some half siblings in this process who have had different experiences with all of this, some of which I am not at liberty to share for a number of reasons related to privacy. I will say, generally speaking, we were all prepared and we were okay with it, but confirmation is something very different, and I didn't know what to make of it. All of a sudden, these pictures and these videos of this person that I had kind of stalked on the internet now made total sense to me. And I had guesses before, but again, until you know for certain, nothing ever feels certain. Um, so Anna and I looked at the results and then looked at each other, just like right here on the same video screen, and we both got a little choked up. And um, it's weird. It never gets easier to tell somebody, a complete stranger, to say the words out loud that, "Wow, you are my sister," and Anna's my sister. Um, I don't necessarily feel any closer, to the doctor, or that I understand him any better than I do now. Um, if anything, I feel like I look in the mirror as a reflection, and it makes more sense. Um, I'm, I am who I am. I've always been who I am. I couldn't pretend to be somebody else, and I never really stopped until this whole process started to think any differently. Who stops and considers, oh, why do I pinch my eyes, together like that? What does my forehead crease when I smile, or say something of significance? And the reality is, you never think about those things. You just do. Those are your quirks. And then, sure enough, in the past couple of days, I found myself looking on YouTube at this doctor who is my biological father, and I'm seeing these same mannerisms in him. And it's very disorienting to see somebody who's a total stranger to you, but who's responsible for giving you half of your DNA. And so you don't know this person, but you know this person. And my whole life, I've looked at my own father, who is my father, unequivocally is my father, and not shared most of those mannerisms and little instincts. And if you've been following this, for a long time, I wrote my father a note on the night that I found out that I was donor conceived, and told him, tongue in cheek, that nothing changes our relationship, but I finally have an explanation for why his jump shot is so much better than mine. And to his credit, his jump shot has always been better than mine, even when I was a varsity basketball player. And it was funny. It was meant to be lighthearted. Um, but I had always looked at my father as someone who I didn't share those same things with, and it was what it was. Most kids, I would imagine, look at one parent versus another and say, "Oh, I have more in common with mom, or I have more in common with dad." I always thought my personality was uniquely my own, and I suppose that's still true. But now I look at this doctor and anecdotes that I hear from him, from Anna, his own daughter, that my behaviors and my mannerisms and the way I say things and the animation that I have, and even the type of career choices that I've made, make sense to her. That they're a mirror for her to her father, and it's a mirror that I've never had. And that part was really disorienting on the first night, was just to know for certain that you really are partly a product of another person, and having no idea that you ever were. That, like, this little crease I make, in my forehead, or the way that I smile, or my professional ambitions, or any of those things, my ability to articulate a thought, are are partly a product of him. So I don't want to say that this is done by any stretch. In fact, it's certainly not. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in one of the previous blogs, so I'll share something that perhaps is new. But what really set a lot of this last stretch on the speed, I guess, the fast lane, so to speak, was a few months ago. I got an email out of the blue from a writer from the New York Times, who actually came across this blog and had an interest in writing a story as it related to not just me, but apparently a couple of other fertility doctors in Rochester, New York, where I'm from, were confirmed to have done this. And assuming I was able to confirm the identity of my biological father, this would be the third in one small city. So that is the story that the journalist was interested in writing. Obviously, a couple months ago, I didn't have any degree of confirmation, but now I do. So this is probably, a story that will be written at some point. But for now, I have an opportunity to breathe a little bit easier. As I mentioned in the last blog article, I'm going to be a father. My wife's doctor is to be believed by the end of the week. To know that I was able to confirm the identity of my biological father the week before is And thank you to Sherbert Junction, who I imagine is a name that I'll get soon. Thank you for stopping by. Um, yeah, it's pretty wild to confirm the identity of your biological father one week and then have your own child the next. Um, and that's where my energy is right now, is being able to know that, as I said in the last post, I'm giving him a foundation instead of a shovel. He's not going to have to go through the same process I did of digging through this and trying to make sense of his own identity. He will go through his own identity issues the way all of us do, but he is not going to have to navigate the same things that I did, not in the same way, at least. I'm sure he will have questions. I will always have questions, but thank you, Phil. I appreciate that. I'm grateful to be able to give that to him. And so that's where things stand. The next big thing, like I said, could be when this New York Times article actually gets written, which, as I understand it, could be several months from now. The other wild card is that I will actually get to meet Anna in 3 weeks. She's going to be flying to Miami, and I can't wrap my head around that feeling. To know that I've gotten so far along with somebody and shared so many deeply, profoundly personal things and uprooted each other's lives together just to find out that we were related, is pretty disorienting in a good way. And in just a little over 3 weeks, I'll get to meet her in person, and she'll get to meet my newborn son. Which, if you'd told me any of these things were going to happen a couple months ago, I mean, maybe I would have believed it, because nothing surprises me anymore. But I am incredibly grateful for it. So I don't mean to end things so abruptly. I did want to give you plenty of context as it relates to the stories that I will tell here moving forward. I don't know. I don't know what to expect will come next, or what will get unpacked. I would love to hear. Frankly, feel free to leave comments here or on any post, or you can send me an email at barry@barrychronicles.com. I'd be more than happy to hear the questions that you have, and actually, well, type it in the comments here. But yeah, I would love to get your sense of questions, curiosities, things that you would like me to discuss moving forward. And like I said, a couple months ago, I didn't think this was going to happen, and it did. So there's a lot that's still in the future that could impact this. And I look forward to telling the story as transparently as I can, or as I know how to. It's weird in a lot of ways. I feel like I have hoarded myself out with this information, or maybe I've made a bigger deal out of it than I should have. I also recognize that the reason I'm even thinking those things is because I'm thinking what anyone else might think about it, of fear of judgment, or fear of being mocked or viewed as insecure, or any number of those things. Why couldn't I just stay quiet about it? I wrestle with that, but this has been valuable to me, and I can't do anybody else's healing process for them. I have to do my own. This has been part of my healing process, talking to strangers on the internet, and people who I have not had relationships with, but I feel a kinship with, who've shared a lot of their own personal stories with me. And mixed emotions, Ramona. Yeah, a lot of them. And you also, all you have to do, I mean, I was receiving a lot of notes this week from people who had read an article on the Washington Post that ended up pushed into a lot of other articles, who was a fertility doctor from New York City, who, of all places, actually ended up practicing in Miami. Towards the end of his career, was confirmed to have done the same thing here, impregnating some of his patients and spawning their children. And you read the comment sections on some of those articles, and they're just brutal places. And if you have not done the work to really know who you are and be okay with it, they can be pretty painful places to spend your time. So I can say that I've done the work to be okay, but I'm still a person. I'm still human, and I have bad days like anybody else. And those things, in this article, they weren't written toward me, but they just might as well have been. Some people will say, like, oh, these people are freaks, or it's not what God ordained, and things like that. And I've written about those things, but I wouldn't say we're freaks. But if you think about it from an ethical standpoint, no, none of us should exist, which is kind of fucked up to think about. Now, it doesn't keep me up at night, but it does make you, uncomfortable on one hand and grateful on the other, that this ethical thing that never should have happened would mean I wouldn't exist. On the flip side, I do, and any effort and energy spent trying to make sense of the why of your existence is a waste of time in my eyes. Yes, I will weigh it, and there will be times where it maybe gets the better of me, but I also know better. I know who I am. I know that I came here in a very unconventional way. And I know it has nothing to do with who I become, who I am to the people around me, and who I will be as a father and as a sibling to a growing number of people. If anything, it has made me more emotionally intelligent, more emotionally aware, and more in love with the truth. I value the truth more now than I ever have. And that's permeated in my personal life and in my professional life. And I'm grateful for the truth. It's given me a forum to speak with a lot of you, to share with a lot of you who've obviously probably not had a lot of people in your own world who've gone through some of the things similar to you. So be it a complete stranger on the internet from Miami, I count myself among those people. This is how I was created. I can't change that. But I can use my quote unquote power for good. And I hope that I have that opportunity. And in so many ways, I know this is going to uproot lives. That's the hardest part for me, is knowing that this is going to have consequences for people that I don't know and who probably don't even know that this is true yet. Um, and I wrestle with that. But I also know that this is not a decision that I made. I decided to speak, but I didn't choose to be involved with it. It was something that was done in order to create me. And I think people deserve to know. And I hope that my confirmation can give them confirmation in their own lives, or maybe something on a path to closure. And I also know it's completely out of my hands. And that of anything that weighs on me still is that there could be untold implications for decisions I've tried to make that I can't anticipate the outcomes for. But I do, in my heart, believe that the truth is the right thing in any circumstance, and I'm grateful to be a vehicle to deliver it. So I know I'm at 17 minutes now. I think I was going to wrap up a few minutes ago, but real quickly, I see a couple more questions that came in, or notes. Kara, thank you for being here. You said congrats on getting to meet your sister. I'm thrilled about that. I can't wait. You found 2 donor siblings very recently, and definitely can be overwhelming. Yeah, especially when you see your face reflected back at you on those individuals and your mannerisms. It's really freaky. Ray, congratulations. How are your other half sisters and brothers feeling about this? It's a good question. I'm going to give 3 categories. One are people who are feeling nonchalant, which I'm being really honest. I do kind of put myself in that category. The first night was kind of heavy, and now I'm just like, whatever. I got a baby on the way, and I kind of suspected this. Some of them are eager to kind of see things, unfold and watch the next pieces fall into place. I don't count myself among them. I know that things are going to happen, but I'm not eager for it to happen. I'm kind of enjoying the calm right now of things just being the way they are. And then, to be honest, there are, a couple among us who are having a really hard time with it. And I understand that to the extent that I can. Each of us has obviously come about this in our own life experiences differently. We've arrived at different places for different reasons. And I sympathize with their situations and empathize to the extent that I can as well. We are very much in the bunker together, even if we're not all feeling the exact same way. We do understand what it's like. We do understand where these feelings come from, even if we don't necessarily, feel them ourselves. So we're each doing our part to love on each other, to be available, to jump on phone calls, to send, reminder text messages and gifs of cartoon characters hugging each other. And, but we're all we're walking different paths, but in the same direction. In that regard, it's a fraternity I'm lucky to be a part of. And then Carrie, you said your favorite part about being donor conceived was meeting the siblings. A lot of grief, but connecting with blood relatives is a really, really cool experience. Yeah. I mean, how many people, when they were kids thought about like, oh, I wish I had a brother. I wish I had a sister. And then you wake up in your 30s and all of a sudden you've got 10, at least in my case. And I think that number's counting, or rather still growing. It's pretty disorienting. And my suspicion is if I've found 10 with this information on his identity being private, there's probably a lot more out there. So I was talking about not knowing what else I'll have to write about. My suspicion is as more come out of the woodwork, I'll have plenty. But I won't take more of your time. I'm grateful to those of you who stuck around to watch. This is by no means the end of my story, but it is perhaps the climax in the eyes of many of you who have been paying attention. And it is certainly a climax for me as well, although I know that there are going to be others. And it continues. And I hope that this forum has been a place for healing, or at least understanding. And I know that there's only so many of you as well. And I did this selfishly at first. I mean, I needed to tell this. I needed to get it out. It was a creative way for me to make sense of what I was feeling and what I was experiencing it. And unlike others, I get a better sense of how I feel if I put it out there, if I write it, or if I say it, and those things lose their power over me when I do that. So I hope at a minimum, maybe you feel the same way, that in reading someone else's experiences or listening to them, that it helps you feel seen or understood, or that you're not alone in that regard, or it helps you think of things in a way that you hadn't before. It was certainly an unintended positive, the proverbial icing on the cake for me to know that it has helped in some way. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. So I will run. I gave you guys my email address here if you have other questions or things you'd like me to write about, or questions that you would like to ask. Phil, I appreciate it. Kara, thank you for writing as well. Ramona, anyone else who's here, I'm grateful, and I'll keep you posted on the next video. We'll talk soon.